Welcome to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina.
Well, hello, and welcome to Glocal Voices. We're live and direct at the University of British Columbia, where we're doing IDIERI 2025. My name is Taiwo Afolabi, and I'm really exciting that we're doing this voice pop interview on our Glocal Voices to really highlight and spotlight work of researchers who are coming together all over the world and whose research really focus on applied theater, drama and education, and everything around that. Today we have two remarkable researchers and practitioners, and they're gonna introduce themselves more. To my left here, we have Dr. Elinor Vettraino, and then we have Dr. Warren Linds. And I'm going to ask both of them to quickly just introduce themselves, and then we dive into the conversation. So over to you.
Brilliant, thanks for that. My name's Elinor Vettraino. I work at Aston University, which is in Birmingham, the UK. And I have a background in sort of social political theatre and education from a while back, some time back, and also therapeutic drama. And I've written a lot about it. What's interesting is in sort of the last 10 years, my work has changed, and I'm working in the field of entrepreneurship education and in business. And it's just a very interesting dynamic putting these two areas together. So I'm curious about how that's going to unfold in the work that we are doing. And I'm guessing we're going to talk a bit about that today. So yes, I'm here for that purpose.
Over to you.
I'm Warren Linds. I teach at Concordia University in the Department of Applied Human Sciences. My background is in popular theater and theater of the oppressed work, and I work in teaching applied ethics to students, master's students who want to become process consultants, which basically is helping organizations and workplaces and community organizations help themselves rather than fixing things for them. So I've been working in that for the last 20 years, and I apply theatrical approaches to my teaching work.
Great, thank you. So what Elinor and Warren are going to be talking about is their work in the intersection of applied theater within the context of workplace. Let's start with that. How did you, first of all, what's the key highlights or the highlights of this research? But I wonder if you want to give us context to the book you're writing on, all of the research that really brought this to be.
Okay. So interestingly, it started for us in IDIERI 9, which was in 2018, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. We were both there presenting different research, completely different. And there was an individual, PhD student actually, who was doing a session on the use of applied theatre within a corporate setting, working, I think, with a construction company. Mm. And there was a very interesting moment, wasn't there? We were in the big plenary session, lots of people there, and some conversation occurred amongst the plenary around the use of theatre in different settings, and she spoke a little about what she did. And that caused a very interesting moment, because there was a sort of, how did you put it, an inhalation?
Yeah, a sigh.
A sigh of, and that made me think, because I had moved out of the world of applied theatre a lot and into this entrepreneurial sort of area. And I feel quite strongly, I think, about the idea of using tools and techniques to support everyone to hold a mirror up to their own practice. Whether you are, it doesn't matter what you are, whether you're a worker or a leader or a manager, or it doesn't matter. So if you're using this to look at what am I doing and how am I doing it and what's the impact I have. So I said something, I think, to that effect, which made the sigh slightly louder. And then nothing happened, and that was it, and it was all fine. But it then prompted, I think, some conversations later on, which then led to John O'Toole coming to speak with us about writing a book on this kind of way of working. And that's how the book kind of evolved. It had been something that I was interested in doing. My mate Warren, who writes with me a lot, we just got heads together, eh?
We had written a collection, edited a collection on playing in the House of Mirrors, applied theater's reflective practice. And so we collaborated, we worked together for quite a few years.
We have 22, actually, I think.
22
now
years.
we know each other, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the book came about. The idea for the book came about.
Interesting. So we started looking at who's doing this work, and through finding articles, just knowing people who know other people, and started listening and finding people who are doing this work and engaging in interviews with them.
I know you mentioned that when I was in Montreal in I think 2022 about this work. I want to come to what are the highlights that you have the freedom to share whatever you want to share. But what are the highlights for you as you think about the tension, as you think about the opportunities, the benefits, and all of those things in applied theatre within the context of work?
I mean, that's really interesting because we've been wrestling with some of that today, haven't we?
Yeah.
So one of the things, Warren can talk a little bit more about the dive into the interviews, but one of the things we've done obviously is go through and actually look for the tensions. Where are the sticking points where people find friction between what they're doing and why they're doing it and how? And so there are some sort of key thoughts that are coming out from that, aren't there? I don't know if you want to say a little bit more about some of those.
Well, just before we're talking about who the practitioners were that we interviewed, and we've been working with a research assistant, Angie Nam, and she's been interviewing people from various sectors. Sometimes they're organizational development workers who use theater, and sometimes they're applied theater practitioners who work in organizations. So it's a different kind. And there's another element, which is how is this used in higher education? So it's both in around corporate and workplace settings.
And executive education and management leadership. I think the other sort of batch of people that we've spoken with are actually actors, people who are professional actors who also have either kind of consultancy on the side or it's a part of what they do generally. So I think that brings a really interesting element or perspective because they come from this idea of I'm a practitioner and facilitator of learning, but I'm also an artist, and it's that tension around theatre as being something that is an art form, but also theatre as something that is an agent of change or an agent of development and so on. So it's been a very interesting kind of unpacking of some of that, hasn't it?
Yeah. So I guess my other question to follow up with that is how can we then use applied theatre to change the culture of the workplace? How are you doing it? Or how can we do it? How can we do it?
And I think that's a really interesting question. And I think it also speaks to the fact that we're in a situation at the moment globally where the world's kind of on fire. That's how it feels for a lot of people. And I think that new frameworks, new ways of looking at how do organizations cope with this level of uncertainty. It's beyond uncertainty now, it's incomprehensibility and so on. Means that actually we're looking for different kinds of people in workplace settings. Ones who are able to collaborate and connect with others. Leaders who are able to empathize and have care and connection for the people they work with. So I think that's probably a useful thing to think about when you're thinking how do we use theatre to help open up some of that sort of way of doing things.
A different way of doing things. Just the art form itself enables change.
Now, it's a lot of, when I think about tension, one of the tension that kind of jump at me is when you bring theatre into the corporate world.
Yeah, I know.
That in itself, it's really a really present tension. How do you deal with that? Or those that you're working with, the interviewees and all that, how are they navigating those tensions?
Well, there's two, just to give two interviews. And one interview, they were looking at, they were in a, I think it was a course, university course, and they were talking about telework. And these people who were doing the practitioners came from a kind of political theater approach, theater the present approach, and realized, of course, there was a polarity between people who wanted to go back to the office and people who didn't, and using the methods of image theater and forum theater to highlight the polarity and engage in dialogue. Interesting, right? There was another one who says, no, my political theater work is separate. I do the work with in the workplace with corporations, and I don't do pure theater. I I get to know what they want to do, and I figure out where theater will fit. What kind of theatrical method will I use, rather than imposing a theatrical method on the workplace itself.
I also wonder, part of the question there is around the tension that exists ideologically. So, I'm coming here as someone who is an applied theatre specialist, and I'm about to take this approach and use it in a setting that some people would say, well, how could you do that? You are empowering the people in the organisation who already have power and so on. I think that's where it's not an easy debate to have, but it is where I think this idea of holding up the mirror across an organisation to see what's going on, and as you said, opening up the space for dialogue. I mean, dialogue is actually something that enables people to understand positionality and power and all the rest of it. And I think if we don't do that, if you only work with one type of person, then actually the other type of person has no way of understanding what's my impact on the world. So I think there is a sort of conversation to be had around ethics and sustainable practice and that kind of thing. But I think if that's the opener within an organisation, when you go in to work with an organisation, well, here's where I'm at, then all good. Of course, it doesn't always work like that. People have bills to pay. I need to get a job. I need to do the work. So that's always going to be there. And I don't think we answer that question as in, here's what you do. It's more like, let's have the debate about it. Let's have the conversation.
I can think of an instance in my own teaching where a student was confronted with, she felt marginalized. It was a cohort program and she felt marginalized. And in doing the theater work, the people who were marginalizing her actually started to realize that she had a different point of view and a different background. Yeah. And the dialogue started to occur because they could see it in a kind of fictional world. Because you're using the body and you're using the emotions, and you start seeing different perspectives.
Interesting. Final question here before we wrap up. I was doing a program on board of directors and an applied theatre person actually came in to use applied theatre of the oppressed, image theatre, and all of that to kind of do some activation. And really interesting. And one of the pieces that really came out, which goes back to the idea we always talk about in applied theatre, is the utilitarianness. We're always using applied theatre for something. And there are many artists who don't think that their work really exists in that space. What are your thoughts to that? What are your thoughts about that? Because that's another tension.
It is absolutely this idea of, is it just an instrument? Are you always learning through, or are you learning in? And I think that is always going to be a tension. I don't think that that's necessarily going to be easily solved. But I also think some of the interviews that we've done, it's come out that some of the practitioners don't necessarily feel there has to be a this or that. They feel that the aesthetic of it is possible, even with the work being something that is driven by, we're here for this particular purpose. And I wonder if some of that comes down to intentionality. Why are you doing the work you do? What is your intent? But also, what's the expectation and intention of the person bringing you in? And perhaps, drawing on the idea of contracting. I mean, I do an awful lot of coaching, executive and individual and team. And one of the first things you do is you contract. Like, why am I here? What is it that you think you're doing here? What do you need me for? And so on. And maybe that's part of the initial conversation. Why are you here? What is it that you think we're doing here?
And it gets away from the one-off idea. Like, you do this and then you leave.
And the parachute is a bad
What is the sustainability of the practice? How do you build? I call it building capacity, and building capacity of the system. The system to solve the problems for itself. And they never had somebody actually ask them that. No. They just, well, we're gonna have a workshop. Let's have a workshop. It'll be fun. Have fun.
But I also wonder, though, if it comes back to what we were talking about earlier today, which was around the facilitator's identity and the sense of your own values and your own ethics. So what do you agree to do and what do you not agree to do? And I think that's maybe an interesting area to consider as well. Not an easy one.
Which leads back to what I teach, applied ethics. So creating a lens where you start thinking about what can you change and what can't you change.
Wow, amazing.
So theater also provides that opportunity because you're working in a fictional world, but I'm a fan of Metaxas, Spoils I Do Metaxas, and I wrote a chapter in the book about it. And the image of the the image of the world and the world of the image are intersecting. And so when you're playing in theater, you're in a real world that is connected to the world outside theater.
I mean, it's kind of interesting because the working title for the book at the moment is Transforming the Workplace Through Theatre, Insights, Practice, Challenges from the Field. But actually, we've even been playing with that today. Is it workplace? Is it work? Is it why we work? I think it's a really complex one.
Yeah. Now, all you're talking about also is getting me to think about the future of work and workplace itself. And
yes.
That's another conversation entirely I don't think we have time to dive into. Because then I'm thinking with the methodology and the use of theater and what you're proposing, how can we then use that to shift or to think about or think about the future of work and workplace?
Well, it's really interesting you say that super quickly, that one of the parts of the book we're actually connecting with or wrapping around a report that's very recently come out called The United State of Work. And it's through an organization that's kind of futurology. And they've highlighted 6 key priorities for workforce moving forward. And it's things that you would expect, actually. It's kind of the evolution of work and the workplace, returning to work or staying home. It's talent and skill development, it's learning, it's culture, it's leadership, it's AI, it's all of these things. And I think one of the things we're trying to do with the book is look at what are practitioners already doing and where do those approaches, methods, tools, whatever, where do those ways of doing things, ways of being connect with these future priorities? And actually, where are the gaps? And are there spaces in those gaps for some form of innovation, some form of intervention where actually we look at doing something that adds value from an ethical and sustainable point of view to the world of work, but through theatre. Because how powerful would it be,
and connecting practitioners to each other through the work, so that the book isn't just a standalone book that stands alone, but actually we're starting to discover people who have common things and network. Yes, a network.
It's all about communities of practice and relationships, isn't it? And that's how it works.
Well, we've been talking to Dr. Elinor Vettraino and Dr. Warren Linds on their work, and their research and their work on applied theatre and workplace. I look forward to reading it, and I know that folks will really love to see the book when it's out. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Good.
You have been listening to Glocal Voices, the official podcast of the Center for Socially Engaged Theatre at the University of Regina. For more details about the Center, visit www.cset.ca.